This video is dedicated to buffing out the last of the Ducati restoration parts. We repaired two fairing parts. The first one has already been buffed on the video before this. This one covers the final part of the Ducati fairing repair. Now, there's some good useful information on this video if you're interested in doing your own repairs like this. This whole set of videos, this is the last one in this series of 18 videos. There's a lot of good information that if a person wants to repair, in this case it's a collector bike fairing, or actually repair anything and do a simple paint and buff out and clear coat, I think the information is on there. I try not to leave out any steps. I try to put the boring stuff and fast forward, and I try to give a reference for anything that I've used, like the 8065 or all the stuff that comes from Harbor Freight. It's really, at the end of the day, it's just a big giant labor of love. Today our goal in the shop is going to be to finish up the one Ducati fairing that was not buffed out yet. We buffed up the first side yesterday. It came out great. You might, if you're new to buffing or you want to pick up some good information, that might be a good video. It's yesterday's video. Of course, we try to post something up every day. So if you're not a subscriber, hey, what can I say? Figure it out. Anyway, there's some good news here. It's really cold right now again. Tomorrow it's supposed to warm up a little, which will make for working out here or getting a ride in just a little bit nicer. So unpredictable. We had wind go through here yesterday, but we did manage to get that fairing done, the first side, and it came out great. And I'm really going to try, if we do get to ride, try to get a ride in without getting a nail on the back tire. This is just like an amazing adventure with these tires. But we have no choice. And it's not going to be long now before we're going to be wearing all these tires out. We got 4 tires down there ready to replace. No, 3 tires. I got one already on. It's just a lot of maintenance. If you have a lot of bikes and you ride them a lot, what happens? You wind up wearing out a lot of tires and oil changes and whatever. But that's the whole fun. If they're worn out, you know you had a good time. And I'm sure part of our ongoing adventure of the whole summer is going to be seeing how this tire wears. We got the initial ride, a little under 100 miles. It handled great. There was nothing not to like about it, but what I really want to see is the wear. I want to see if we're going to get the Michelin 2s and I have it all logged in on all of these bikes. And on this bike, I never got to figure it out because I got a flat before the original Dunlop wore out. Then I got a flat 1,500 miles into the Michelin 2. So I guess we're going to learn. We're going to learn, and I'll share what I learned. That's the whole purpose of my channel, is to share information. And today we're going to share information about buffing. Now, every one of these bikes in my little collection, I buffed it out. I've used similar. I've tried different products, tried different methods. I've come up with, after like an evolutionary process of using the method that I'm going to show on this video and the products I'm going to show, and it's been pretty bulletproof. I've been able to pass it on to a lot of people who I think some of them or a lot of them have passed it on, including Scott in Kansas, who is really going like a house on fire with his restorations. But one of the biggest things I do enjoy, and it's a personal thing in my little things that I enjoy these parts that Joe brought over here. Needed extensive amount of repair to bring them back to life, and I think we have. I think the first one yesterday with the buffing that went on, I think that was, like, to me, a miracle. And I think the second one now, the second one, the paint is not dry the same amount of days, so it may be a little softer, may need a little different technique, maybe a little different compound, but I'm going to try the exact method I used yesterday just to see how that's going to play out. Remember, my shop conditions are not like when you paint in a body shop or in a spray booth, so that I always have to deal with the colder temperatures. I'm usually painting in the winter, and I'm always experimenting with new products, but most of the time the old products work better. So I depend on my little bike collection to keep me busy in the winter, keep me active, give me exercise, and of course the biggest thing, to keep me constantly going insane trying to figure out what I want to do next. We had a windstorm go through here for the last couple of days, and it's made a mess out of the pond, but part of the pond maintenance, part of keeping this farm an operating profitable farm. And we actually can start to see the fish because we've tried to beat the algae bloom this year. Well, finally that pond is as much as I'm going to get done today. But the wind really took a beating on the pond. Wow, the leaves. Now after a nice cup of coffee, it's good to come down in the shop and check out yesterday's port here. Oh man, does that look nice. Oh, that buffed out just better than I could have ever expected. Now, whenever I do buffing or whenever I do this, I do it under fluorescent lighting because it shows all the mistakes. That's an old modeling trick. When I take this out in the sun, it really isn't bright sun out there today. It's kind of cloudy. I put that out in a bright sun, that will look like just unbelievably good. Now, the wheels, and again, I have to get the sprocket from Vlad before I can do the next step on that. We haven't been able to get a convenient time for him. He's busy. This wheel I could do the tire on once I finish the buffing. And of course, this is our candidate of the day. If we get him buffed out today, both Joe and I will be really happy guys. So here's some good basic information that I've learned over many years, more than 50 years of doing this kind of stuff with modeling and of course with motorcycling. But I have, and I give Mark Morgan a credit for this, we were using other brands of sandpaper. Mark talked to a friend of his and got us a sleeve of when we were doing his FC 600, I believe. It's the red line in DASA. Now, what's good about this, I went out and got some 2500 and it just took a lot longer to sand it out. And the buffing took the same amount of time. Then I tried, and I have 1500, 1200, and yep, then you just got to buff till the cows come home. This, for my shop conditions and the way I paint, this is the best compromise there is. Use it wet, use it with a sanding block first, and then detail out everything by hand. Now, once it's flat sanded with this, then using this product, and I got this at Gavin's. It's a little bit pricier than the McGuire's. They both seem to work. I think this works a little bit better, but it's personal choice. 80-65. So it's this system that I developed for myself and my shop that I'm sharing with you, because this will allow you to do a lot of nice work. And this even polishes aluminum, by the way. It polishes it real nice. The other trick to this whole process is to use a brand new pad, a brand new Harbor Freight pad. When we set up the buffer, I'll show why. The old pad, even when it sits overnight, it gets cakey, and there's no substitute for a brand new pad. A brand new pad doesn't put little minute scratches in it that you really make yourself crazy trying to take out later on. Now, I have to figure out exactly how I want to do this today, because Karen has a bunch of errands to do, and I think she wants to do them early in the morning. She's checking with our daughter right now. But before I even go, I'll get the soapy water mixed. I'll get all set up, and I'll be ready to do a little part here and try to do that first little part in real time to show everybody how this would go. Now, that's the way I usually do my little demos, and then of course we break it into a bunch of little parts, do it one part at a time, get all the sanding done, and then that wonderful thing, when you come down the home stretch with the buffing, all the decals have to be done by hand. They're very delicate. A lot of parts of this job are very delicate. There's no Bondo on it. If you went and looked at the other 17 videos, all the body work is CA, not Bondo, and all of the parts have been reinforced in the back with carbon fiber and e-glass where they were cracked and broken. So it's an interesting set of videos for somebody that wants to do a repair of their own bike. These are collector parts that you just can't go out on eBay and find, and if you did find them, not going to be in this condition when you find them. I don't think so anyway. But anyway, interesting stuff. I'm trying to share it on these videos. I want to go mix up the soapy water, get started until Karen's ready to go. That is really not a big secret of how to do this. It's labor intensive. It takes a lot of elbow grease to do it. But in the end, it's not something that's very difficult to do. It's not like rebuilding a motor or something where you've got to be very technical. It's just a lot of labor. Everybody has their own favorite way of working, but my favorite thing is to get it the way I prefer, is to have the part up off the table a little bit just easier for me, and get it supported with rolls of paper towel or something. When I've seen people try to hold this in their hand or on a kitchen table or something, and they start banging into things and everything, it gets a little cumbersome. So if I can get that just the way I want it, now I can start. The sandpaper, the first thing I'd want to do on all the flat areas is block it. And it always makes you look like you're really smart if you cut with scissors instead of tearing the sandpaper. But the other trick, and these are all on the first video, but I like to repeat it for people that have not seen that video. I'm going to sand with a part of the soft sanding block that you can buy for about $5. In a Body Shop supply, your fingers go in it. You can move this because the sanding block usually cuts on the edge. You cut around the edge like a picture frame. Then when you're all done, you get 8 or 10 times to move the paper. You can cut this into 4 pieces and use it for hand sanding because your fingers don't go out on the edge, they go in the middle. And what that does, it saves you from buying or throwing away unnecessary sandpaper. Kind of keeps it that you get good use for the money you spend. I always try to show the first little part, little area in real time so you have some idea. It gives you a little idea since we are trying to share information. The water is there to just flush away the material you remove with the sandpaper. Now, a lot of people say, and I've tried it, and it works, but it's not super mandatory, is to sand in one direction and then sand at 90 degrees. The nickname for that in body shop work is waffling. So you're sanding and making little waffles. It makes little mountaintops. Supposedly makes it easier. Sometimes, and I've done it both ways, and to me, it's just a labor-intensive job no matter how you do it. I always relate it to mixing concrete. Now, normally when I have a day like this where I'm going to have many hours of sanding and buffing, I try to break up the day with not only coffee breaks, but if I have errands to do, and Karen has errands today, so I would always try to do some of the job, part of the job, so my arm gets a little rest in the middle of the day. And sometime that works. Sometime today it's not going to work because I think she wants to go out early. And of course, in our family, there's only one boss, and it ain't me. And she plans our personal life out, and I work around it by staying busy working on motorcycles and whatever. Anyway, I wanted to show this in real time. Now, I just show this all the time because this is what happens. You can now use this little piece of sandpaper. And you can actually feel when you go back to sand, ooh, it's got a drag on it now, like a grinding drag. Well, yeah, it does. The video yesterday, I'm sure, had a lot of redundant information on it, but it doesn't matter when you really want to learn this stuff, and you really want to learn it. That's the bottom line. If you have a passion for this, and you want to restore old motorcycles, this is the only way I know, is you just gotta mix some concrete. So let's see, and let's do it in real time and see how flat that is. It's got to be dry, of course. Let me take the camera off the tripod. We use fluorescent lights in the shop. This is flat. This has the little specks of dust that when you paint, nibs, dust, whatever, doesn't matter. None of this matters. What matters is to get and patiently get the whole part to be flat sanded like this. Now, be cautious because if you're doing a car or a factory motorcycle, a lot of times they don't put a lot of clear on. Now, I got plenty of clear on this, so I could do this. I can do this 8-10 times. It won't even matter. I can do this to the heart. I probably will not go through even on a 10th time. But factory bikes don't really have that much clear on, so I would just be real cautious about doing this. Get it flat. If you're going to buff it, I did that on the R1, and then buff it, and you're done. But anyway, so the trick now is until Karen's ready to go, I'm going to try to get some more of these areas buffed. I did this yesterday. This part, this chunk, then very carefully over the decals. All in by the scoops has to be done by hand. I'll put some of this on fast forward if it gets boring. It's boring already. But when it's done, this is the bottom line. When it's done, it'll be absolutely beautiful. Okay, Karen has decided We're going to go out early, so what it'll mean is I don't get the usual break in the middle of this, but it'll just mean we'll just reorient the day, and no matter what, we're going to get this done. But even a little spot like that, at least I'm started. And the next thing is get all our errands out of the way and get another cup of coffee and get back here. This is going to be some heavy duty work today. And look at this day. You hear the birds chirping, Care? I do. I hear birds. My feeder is back after being blown away yesterday. I spent a lot of time on that pond this morning. Yeah, you see the fish. First time this year. And my favorite place to go, Aldi. Aldi la. Right over to the vegetable aisle. Time to get back and get those parts buffed out. Back home, and this day did not play out. It's really still right around freezing. Not a great day for anything but buffing. Time for a little Maxwell House rubbing compound. Oh, we're turbocharged now. I know you can't believe this, and it's not in the forecast, but it's snowing. Just starting to snow. I don't know how to even think about this. And I was thinking tomorrow I'm going to get a ride. Ooh, I don't think so. Here we go again. It's funny, no snow at all in the forecast. What they had this morning was a great day to do buffing. Anyway, we're going to get back to this. It's time for just turbocharging the arm up and getting her done. Now, and fast forward, this always looks so easy. Well, unfortunately, fast forward and reality are a little bit different. It is time consuming and it requires an output of energy. That's all I can say. Now, ultimately, at the end, every one of the edges has to be done by hand on each little section. And this is where you start to use up a lot of time. The big flat areas go very quickly, relatively quickly anyway. And then in the end, it's getting around all the corners and edges. And if you try to do that edge with a block, you almost always break through. And of course, we don't want to do that, of course. And since this part has a lot of body work on it, I want to be ultra careful where the body work is. Now, I waited till the end to drill that hole. And you never want to, where this has got a carbon reinforcement on the back. I never want to drill through carbon fiber. What I want to do, because it catches the drill and it throws it out. What I did, I burned through with a Dremel bit and just let it burn its way through. It gave us a nice hole. One piece is done, and now we're just going to move up to the next piece and the next piece and the next piece. Just basically a repeat of what we did yesterday.
Yeah, there's just no substitute. If you got a big job, the only way I know to go about doing it, you attack it. Get mad, drink coffee, pinch yourself, whatever, slap yourself in the face, but you gotta get, this is a good energy output. And when you're all done, you can go arm wrestling guys in a local bar and you'll probably lose. And of course, there's a lot of parts of this that just have to be done by hand. Up here around the scoop areas, there's just no way you can get any kind of sanding block in there, but unless you're a midget mouse, I guess you can't get in there. Anyway, we'll get in there. Now usually the detailing, doing the little edges of the scoops, the edges of the part, and the parts that have to be hand sanded, because they're not perfectly flat, you would think that wouldn't take up that much time. It usually takes up more time than the time you spend with the sanding block.
So we're about, a third done. The next thing is going to be around the decals, and we're going to do that very carefully, of course. And then the top third is all little corners and angles and edges. And then the biggest thing is the scoop up. That whole scoop has to be done by hand. We've got to finish up this one. It still needs a little detailing, but little by little, it's coming around. Now, I've carefully sanded like a picture frame around the whole decals, and because these decals are thick, and we know, I'm suspicious of how thick they are. I'm not used to dealing with this. I'm going to really take my time and sand over this as carefully and delicately as possible. This is really going to be challenging to get in between all the letters and everything. And I really am, well, I wish I could have made these decals, and I can't because they're gold and silver. You can't make on a water slide decal. I wish I could have made this. It would have been so easy, but we'll do our best here and just do it carefully and by hand.
And this is really delicate work. I was really sweating this out. These decals, when Joe and I installed them, I know he was having a little sweat because, first of all, it took about 2 months to get them from Australia. We were in limbo land, and it was very difficult getting them on. I'm not sure if it's because they were old or what, but I did not want to see a problem with the decals.
And I am being super delicate, super careful, but I've got that part done. Now I'm just going to work my way up to the top of the piece, but I don't want to risk anything going through that decal. That decal, just getting it from Australia, was a month. It added a lot to the job, and without that decal, this would not be we wouldn't be able to finish the job. Now, of course, all the scoop areas have to be done by hand. There's just no way to get a sanding block in there. This becomes a very time-consuming part of the job, but there's just no way. When you have scoops, you got to pay.
And actually, any part that you have to sand and detail by hand, it's just going to take a long time. It's just time-consuming to do it.
Right, with the lower half done, it's just little by little coming together. But these parts up here, all hand sanded now. All these little angles and edges is the only flat part left of the whole job. And this is, you know, it's like everything. It just takes a lot of time. We are officially coming down the home stretch. This is the last of the parts to detail out, and we will be ready to buff. It's a good feeling. This is the harder of the two jobs to do. The sanding is at least 2/3 of the work, and when it's done right, the buffing goes very, very nicely and quickly and smoothly. When you try to skimp on the sanding, you pay later on. It's like a bad foundation for a house. You wind up paying for a lot of other things. And with this actually didn't go too bad. The snow stopped. It snowed for an hour, and that was it. And it stopped. We don't even have to deal with that. I thought that may be a problem. So it looks like we're having a very productive day. Okay, we're ready for the buffing operation. Boy, that took longer than I thought. It did come out great though. So this is Harbor Freight. These are the terry cloth bonnets. The product we like, first choice is, and some of the other ones are just as good, but I like this one, and I get that from Gavin's, 8065. And this is yesterday's pad. We're just going to deep six that, get a brand new one on there, and hope that this paint, which is not quite as old as the other clear, buffs up just as well. And my late friend George Venturini, who was a mason, taught me how to mix concrete years ago. We did some masonry work on this house and his daughter's house, and he gave me a phrase that I've used for my whole life. He said, never make the job. It's hard enough to do concrete work. You don't have to figure out ways to make it more difficult. One of the ways you can make it more difficult is trying to use up an old pad. These pads are only a couple of bucks a piece. And what happens when you try to use them up, you wind up spending more time and probably more product, which this is expensive. You wind up, and it's not a good cost saving. So my feeling is, and I tell everybody, just put a new pad on, bite the bullet, throw the other one away, or buff out your lawnmower or something with it, or your neighbor's car, something that really doesn't matter. But this now, we've got the Harbor Freight $15 buffer and our material, and we're ready to see how this paint is going to buff out. Now, kind of common sense, shake the product up. This is really a good product. I have really had a lot of good luck. I've buffed a lot of stuff out with this already. And let's hope we're going to add to our list here. Not real critical how you do this. I want to get it all over the part that I'm going to be doing. I want to do this first little one in real time. And the purpose of doing it in real time is so you can get an idea of how much time you would be putting into each area. And then multiply that by the amount of areas you have. But this will be a real-time demo. It's not real important to keep moving this around because it's not so powerful it's going to burn the paint. A bigger heavy-duty buffer, like the one you would use on a car, is probably a good idea to move it around a lot more. But I just do it out of habit more than anything else. But if I do one little spot at a time and don't try to rush it, it's amazing how good this stuff is. I have used the Meguiar's. I have used some of the other polishes, and Glenn had some real good luck. I got to go back on the video and find out what the name of that product is. He was here buffing out one of his motorcycles, and he had a big giant car buffer with extra pads and everything, and it worked great. Now, a lot of this we're going to have to do by hand, of course, but the big flat areas, I can get the buffer in. The scoops I've got to do by hand, and the edges. What happens if you hold this up on an edge, you'll burn through. You run the risk of burning through. Anyway, enough with that. I think we got enough of a demo here. Let's just see. We got a clean rag. Get a clean microfiber here. Get a little look at what we've accomplished. And I want to do it without a camera cut, of course. I don't, I always prefer, if I'm looking at something, I'd like to see it in real time. That's my real-time demo. You can see the reflection of, here, an example, if you put the pad there, you can see the pad. And it's that reflection that, to me, is what makes that worthwhile. Now, obviously, a couple hours from now, we'll have the whole part done. And then the biggest thing is at the end of it, I've got to go around all the edges, in the scoops and everything by hand. But we're not trying to do this like in some shortcut way. I want this to be as good as I can make it when I'm done. And it seems like pretty much every part of a job like this is time consuming, labor intensive, and I guess look at it this way, it's cheaper than joining a gym. You know, little by little, it's coming up. The difficult part here, and I want to really be careful when I go over those decals. I don't want to have any chance. So far, so good, but just got to be super, super careful. This part, buffed out, just couldn't be nicer. And again, when you work on the fluorescent lights, you see every little speck and error. You take this out in the bright sun, you don't see anything. Once again, I was really sweating going over the decals that I'd have a problem. I really took my time. You don't really see it on the video and fast forward, but it was very time consuming and it came out perfect. Well, little by little, this is really coming together. Really coming out nice. I was real careful over those decals. Boy, oh boy. And the scoops, as always, they take a lot of time, but all of the parts and this edge is really, that the whole thing is really, because really you have to be delicate because I don't want to break that through that edge, and there is there's a repair up there, there's a repair under here, so I want to just be real careful doing that edge, but we are really making good progress here. And right at the end, the most labor intensive part of it is the scoops. You have to basically do these by hand. I don't know of a tool I could get in there without taking a chance of scratching an edge or whatever. So we just tough this out. Once this is done, we're coming down a home stretch here. We're almost done. And then I'll go over it and see if there's any spots I want to make a little bit better. But basically we're at 90%, maybe a little more now right now. And the final part, as always, is getting in the little nooks and crannies and little areas like these little ditches here. Getting this finished up. Wow, this part came out great. Now I'm very surprised because this paint was not as old as the other one, and it took a little extra time, but it buffed out just beautifully. And the products and that sanding system I've used, I think that's just about as bulletproof and easy as anything, because I think I've tried every kind of rubbing compound and everything in the world, and that 4CR 8065 has always worked well for me under the paint that I use under my shop conditions. But the home stretch is here. I've got to get in a couple corners and edges, and we will be ready. I am ready. And a little free bonus here, the snow didn't build up at all. It was nothing. I wish I could have said that earlier in the year. Well, this really was a memorable day, and this really came out nice. Wow, I can't believe it. It really did come out nice. Anyway, I want to thank the healthcare workers, guys. Thank you so much. I'm due for my shot in a few days. I can't wait. And boy, oh boy, it's what I have passion for all these parts that you just can't buy these parts in the store, and when you can bring them back to life, it's a great feeling. Anyway, I hope you did enjoy the video. I try not to leave out any steps. We do try to post up every day, and we try to make the videos as interesting as possible, of course. So I hope you did enjoy watching, and all I can say is if you have the passion for this stuff, I hope this information is helping you fulfill your dreams. I'm trying to pass it on as best I can, and thanks for watching. Now, always at the end of one of these projects, and I hope Joe's going to be here in the next couple days, pick up the parts, give us his opinion as to how he thinks they came out. And I just look back, and I try to look back for my own personal satisfaction, knowing that it was a couple of months ago we had that terrible snowstorm. We were snowed in, we were sanding and priming in the worst possible conditions, and then when the second part came in and we saw the damage on that had to be done, we took care of a lot of that damage separately. And then the big thing that held us up, matching the paint and waiting for the decals. Just a lot more work than you could have ever expected. And to be honest, there were times during doing this job that I was wondering if we were ever going to get those decals, or if some kangaroo ate them, or whatever happened. But eventually we got them. Joe and I had a wonderful day of installing decals, quite an adventure. In fact, this whole set of videos that goes over 18 videos, my average shop day is about 4 to 5 hours. So you figure out how many hours we have into this project. You just multiply it, figure it out. And at our the amount of passion we've both put into it, Joe's put a lot of money into it too. But come springtime, he is going to have this bike better than new. That was our goal in the beginning. I think we've met or exceeded his expectations. And Joe, now that the job is over, I really hope you're going to be happy with it and have some good, safe riding. So to everybody that's watched the videos with us, thanks for watching.